Good evening, I'm Melisa Idris.
I'm Sharaad Kuttan.
Welcome to Consider This, the show where we want you to consider and then reconsider the news of the day. Well, the haze shows no sign of abating. It has disrupted classes for over 1 million school students nationwide today. And this is after 1,484 schools in Sarawak, Selangor, Putrajaya, KL, Perak, Penang, Negeri Sembilan all closed for the day. Now, the latest news is that schools in Selangor will be closed for the next 2 days, while schools in Penang and Putrajaya will be closed tomorrow. Sharaad, what do you make of all this?
So the question is, who are you angry at? And I'm sure many of us are, in fact, very angry that we're breathing in a very polluted air. We can't avoid it because you can't be locked up at home because, while the schools are closed, many of us have to go to work. Now,
But there's opportunity cost to this, right? 1 million students, staying home from school, not in classes. That means how many days of school have they missed?
Okay, yes, and I'm sure there are many miserable faces among those little children.
Well, not the children, more
miserable.
About the parents, I would say.
But who are you angry at? Are you angry at the Indonesian government? Are you angry at palm oil plantations? Are you angry at smallholders? Are you angry at this government? Are you angry at ASEAN for failing to deliver on a mechanism that actually works? And I think that's one of the big questions. Who are we directing our anger at, and where can we direct our energies in a way that can be positive despite what seems to be a rather bleak situation?
Is there room for optimism? I mean, are there silver linings to be found amid the haze?
I do think there is room for optimism. There was an initiative, if you remember recently, Broga Hills out in Semenye was on fire, and many hectares were burning, and people have now rallied around that. Over 1,000 people have said they will help replant those hills. So the sense that people want to do something, I think, is very strong out there. The question at the end of the day is the politics of it, especially when we look at the fact that we've exhausted diplomatic channels and we look at Indonesia and ask ourselves, is the Indonesian president doing enough?
Right. Sometimes it feels like, what can civil society do? Because it just feels like this is a government-to-government initiative. Whether we as consumers, as private citizens, are we empowered to do anything? So you're right, that story about kind of focusing on what's happening within our own borders, with Broga Hills, making sure that we're not adding to the pollution or the air pollution back home. I think that's a silver lining. But I also wanted to say that I saw something quite funny. My silver lining for this has been Malaysians' sense of humor in dealing with the haze. I saw on the music streaming site Spotify that Malaysia has a haze-inspired Spotify list titled Hazed and Confused, and among the songs include The Platters, Smoke Gets in Your Eyes.
Okay, every cloud has a silver lining, but you can't see the clouds at the moment. You can hardly see the KL Twin Towers either.
That's right.
Okay, let's turn our attention to Sabah. Where
developments in politics in Sabah, that's right. So we have recent news that Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim has been seen getting cozy with former UMNO antagonist Tan Sri Pandika Amin Mulia and Datuk Sri Saleh Said Kroa. So former antagonists, former, enemies, one might even say, now friends.
Yeah, that along with the story that Sipitang MP Yamani Hafiz Musa, son of the former Chief Minister of Sabah, Musa Aman, has been received into the embrace of Bersatu. Bersatu, of course, is one of the partners of the coalition. If you remember, Dr. Mahathir opened a branch of Bersatu in Kota Kinabalu just a couple of months ago. So there you have two instances. Again, Yamani was famous for going missing after the last general elections. Then he left UMNO to become an independent and now has decided to be part of Bersatu. I wonder what this demonstrates. It either demonstrates, Melisa, one of two things. Malaysian politics is driven by a huge amount of generosity, or, as they say in politics, there are no permanent enemies. There are no permanent enemies in politics.
Right, yeah. I'm just wondering, what this means for the state of Sabah, the optics of it, right? What does this look like to I guess, Sabahans dealing with this? And do politicians even care about optics?
Do they do? Indeed. In fact, there was what's gone viral, an image of Anwar Ibrahim, because party president of PKR, in holding hands on the beach with Pandika Amin Mulia. And of course, there's all kinds of jokes that have been generated as a consequence of this particular meme.
Again, sense of humor of Malaysians.
Wonderful sense of humor. Can the politicians match this in terms of integrity? We know Sabah is famous for describing, or Sabahans are famous for describing their politicians as frogs. Party hopping seems to be a sport in the state of Sabah.
Very quickly, Sharaad, I also want to touch on news coming up from the Middle East. So if anyone interested in Middle East politics, the results of today's elections in Israel should be of great interest. Incumbent Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu seems to have failed in his bid to strengthen his hand in the Israeli parliament, or Knesset. And this is despite promises to two extreme Zionist forces, like promising to annex the West Bank. It looks like his party will be in a deadlock with centrist opposition. So why is this interesting?
It's interesting because a lot of Malaysians talk about feeling for the plight of Palestinians, because the plight of Palestinians is crucial to the story. We know Benjamin Netanyahu has been one of the longest-serving Israeli prime ministers in recent times, almost 10 years in power, because he's been dogged by claims that he's corrupt and so on. And so he's holding tight to power. He didn't make it 5 months ago when they had an election. So he thought by going the low road, he would, in this election, win a decisive victory, at least in terms of controlling the Knesset. It didn't work out. It seems that the two major coalitions are in a dead heat together. And also, interestingly enough, Melisa, the Arab bloc, now this is a grouping of Arab parties, came together, and because of an attempted voter intimidation by Benjamin Netanyahu, the Arab voters, the Arab citizens of Israel came out and voted in huge numbers. Yeah. And now they're the third largest bloc.
That's fascinating. And I think this could be an interesting story to keep our eye on, especially looking at Malaysian coverage of Middle Eastern politics. Do we cover the Middle East sufficiently beyond just the emotive? Okay, after this, we're going to be focusing our attention on the foreign policy of Malaysia in the age of Malaysia Baru. After this, with Consider This. Stay tuned.